King of Kings, the Sentai with a Tyrant King, the series filmed on an LCD screen, the season with Mafune. My name is Alex, and in this video I'll be talking about Osama Sentai King Ojer. So this one I watched right as it was ending and as Boom Boomger was starting, so I have to admit it was definitely a little bit hard to get into because of the sets, but anyways I still enjoyed it a bunch. Spoilers as usual for the season, The Secret of King Hercules, the movie Adventure Heaven, King Ojer vs. Dawn Brothers, King Ojer vs. Kyoryuger, Deca Ranger with Tombo Ojer, King Ojer in Space, and Boom Boomger vs. King Ojer. King Ojer is the 47th entry to the Super Sentai franchise, and the motif for this season is kings and bugs. This season takes place on Chiki, which is an Earth-like planet on the other side of the universe where there are 6 kingdoms all ruled by kings who are also the King Ojers. This season follows the King Ojers as they fight to protect their respective kingdoms from the evil Bugnrock. Excluding Big Rex's Okuagata Ojer, the main King Ojers are Girahusty, Kuagata Ojer and King of Shugodam, Yan Magast, Tamba Ojer and King of Nkosopa, Himaru-ran, Kamakiri Ojer and King of Ishibana, Rita Kaniska, Papyana Ojer and King of Gokon, Kaguragi Deboski, Hachi Ojer and King of Tofu, and later Jeremy Brazieri, Spider Kimonos and King of the In-Between Bug Rock Land. This season gave every King Ojer the chance to have their backgrounds explained, like how each one of them became a king and how their decisions have affected them and their own kingdoms. I actually think they did a really good job with this in taking the time to flesh out each character and what their countries do. They all have a part to play, and if one of them is gone, then it would all fall apart. Like without tofu, there would be no food, and without Ishibana, there would be no medicine, and I like to think those are important. Okay, right off the bat, I want to say my favorite is Jeremy Brazieri because he's just so cool. He is really just that guy. He was such an interesting character because he serves as the sort of narrator for the season, telling the stories of others, while his own story is so interesting in its own right. He is part Bugnrock and part human and has lived for thousands of years, most of which he spent with a lock over his face and lived underground, but still watched as things happen to other characters and kingdoms. All the kings are great and strong, but Jeremy stands out not only because he's the 6th Ranger, but because of how he became king of the In-Between Bugnrock land. Jeremy is not a traditional king in the King Ojer sense, as his kingdom was underground and wasn't really recognized as an official kingdom for a long time. The Bugnrock were villains who waged a war against the surface people, more on that in a bit, but when Jeremy became king, he reformed the Bugnrock, wanted to fix the Bugnrock's reputation, and even have them be able to coexist with the surface kingdoms instead of waging a war. And I respect him for that. But for the other kings, I actually did like them all. Another favorite has gotta be Rita because they're just so fun and cool, and I really do need a Mafune plush. I enjoyed the conflicts between the Rangers and their relationships with each other and how those affected their kingdoms and their world as a whole. Their dynamics are all interesting because they're all coming from different places, and I loved how all the kings can function on their own along with each other. They might just be too powerful. Now as for the villains, the first villains were the Bugnrock who, like I mentioned, waged a war on the surface 2,000 years ago and are now back to wage war once again. The Bugnrock did reform with Jeremy, and that role of villain did get replaced by the Uchu, led by Uchu King Dagded Dujardin, who is also the leader of the 5 Jesters, and I cannot pronounce that correctly. Most of his motivations are just to spread chaos and see how people react, and as you can probably expect, he tried this on the King Ojer Earth, using the Bugnrock Kaijin to wreak havoc on that world. I don't have that much to say about the villains in this season, however I did specifically enjoy one of the Jesters, specifically Glody, and how he was behind the Wrath of God, which was a major event that happened 15 years prior and is the reason why some of the kings are the current kings. Glody used his power of necromancy to bring dead Shugods back to life, and with that he ruined a bunch of crops for tofu and killed a bunch of people amongst several other things. He's just kind of the worst guy ever, obviously, but he was so interesting to me because of his fascination with death and how he goes about that within the show. What I would have loved was to see the other Jesters having a little bit more time to shine rather than just Glody, even though he was the best one. Okay, the overarching story of this season is to defeat the Kaijin and maintain peace within the kingdoms. The series is mostly serious with the serialized plot, almost all of the episodes lead into each other carrying out that overarching story. But I have to highlight one of my favorite episodes, which is the episode that revolves around Himeno having to find a king with the other King Ojers being contenders. I feel like that episode specifically shows the relationship between the Rangers perfectly, and in a funny way. It's characters first, story second, which I adore having these kinds of episodes, especially when it comes to heavy story-based seasons where the characters aren't around each other all the time. That's enough about the show, let's get into the specials. First is The Secret of King Hercules. This limited web series takes place in between the earlier episodes with Hercules, Gear's brother and former king of Shugodam, trying to revive the power of Okuagata Ojer, and Hercules' efforts to learn more about the history of Shugodam while executing those who also know in the process. I like these specials, but they honestly could have been referenced more in the show rather than it feeling like a one-off thing, like it has the potential to mean more. Now for the movie Adventure Heaven. This movie is about the coronation ceremony of Girahusty, and with that process, the kings have to travel to Hakabaka, which is the land of the dead, to see and fight the first king of Shugodam, who deems Gira too nice and attempts to take the throne back, while the other kings wander Hakabaka until they are brought back to life. I don't have much. This movie was nice. It was very cool to see more of the history of Shogodom. Now for the crossovers. First up is King Ojer vs. Dawn Brothers. I talked about this one in my Dawn Brothers video, so make sure to check that out, but I'm also going to talk about it a little bit here too. This one is the team-up movie between King Ojer and Dawn Brothers, of course, but they are fighting for a majority of the movie. After being transported to the King Ojer Earth, the Dawn Brothers all get into a situation with all the kings and somehow die, and because of Gira and Taro fighting, they all do too. But then they team up to defeat a monster and all's well that ends well. This one's really funny just because of how they all died, especially how Jeremy and Shinichi died. I found that to be very amusing. Next up is King Ojer vs. Kyoryuger. For this one I'm going to include both the episodes within the show and the movie because they are somewhat connected. I understand the specials now because I've seen Kyoryuger. Anyways, in the show, the King Ogers got sent to the Kyoryuger Earth and teamed up with the Kyoryugers to defeat the Debos army who have come back due to Dagdead reviving them. With the return of Debos, the Kyoryuger's main power source, which is Brave, is gone, so the Kyoryugers can't transform. With the introduction of King and Ami's kid Daigoro, or Prince, using a King Gabru caliber, which is a combo of the King Ojer and Kyoryuger powers in a way, transforms into King Kyoryu Red, and him and Gira defeat one of the Debos monsters. The King Ogers are still stuck on that Earth after that and help the Kyoryugers for a bit until they all get their powers back and are able to fight all together and go back to their Earth in the end. That was a lot. Now that I've actually seen Kyoryuger and King Ojer, I really appreciated the aspects about the murals being connected and a prophecy being fulfilled, and I loved seeing my team come back and interact with the King Ogers. Like, I loved seeing Ian and Jeremy discuss those murals. I honestly would have preferred this be a special instead of episodes within the actual show because some people, like me, might be really confused because they haven't seen Kyoryuger yet. It is still really fun though, especially Gira and Prince's training, but the best part of this crossover is absolutely seeing the King Ojer suits not on a green screen, but I just might be a hater. As for the movie, it's a continuation of what we saw in the show, but it centers on a time travel and multiverse related plot with the main conflict of the movie coming from Utu Semimaru changing the past, giving Gira a bunch of rainbow Jululiar and turning him evil. I personally loved seeing King come back because he's my favorite Kyoryuger, but I wish we got to see more of this alternate universe. Especially I would have loved to see more of the alternate King Ogers and more of how they live in this universe. Now for Dekaranger with Tomba Ojer. This one is certainly interesting. Tomba Ojer is on the other Earth and has lost his memory and has fallen in love with Jasmine. I was really excited to watch this one because I do like Dekaranger and Sononi is sort of here too. Her name is Ten and her actress is also Sononi in reference to her in the roll call. It was lovely to see Yanma fight along with Jasmine, Yumeko, and Ten, but it's also wild because Yanma keeps trying to low-key seduce Jasmine and Yumeko keeps telling her she's got a husband and kids, which is absolutely wild to me. And I always love seeing the Dekarangers and crossovers too. For the last crossover, Boom Boomger vs. King Ojer. I genuinely loved this one because I love the Kings and I love the Boom Boomgers, and I was such a huge fan of Rita, Himeno, and Mira having fun at the amusement park, but me personally, I would have loved to see more of that. Loved the dynamics between all the pairings and seeing Gira ride in Taya's car rocked, and that final roll call was so fantastic, but the best part was the whole cast dancing to the Boom Boomger ending theme. I was so excited to see which dance they would do, and I'm so glad they did the Boom Boomger dance rather than a weird combo of the King Ojer and Boom Boomger one. And now the last special, King Ojer in Space. This special takes place after the main series and it's definitely interesting. This one is about the Ojer crown being taken and Gira teaming up with Prince and Uchi once again to win an illegal tournament to win the crown back while the other King Ogers have a plan to bust this tournament. Dagi Kruger from Dekaranger is also there, which I enjoyed him with Rita, and Ricky from O-Ranger is also there in the tournament. This special was okay. The fight scenes were top notch, especially the final battle with Gira and Prince and Ricky. The ending was a tad bit on the predictable side with the whole thing being a secret plan by the King Ogers, but it was still fun anyway. So King Ojer was a very good series, but I would have loved to see what it looked like if they didn't record exclusively on an LCD screen. Thank you for watching. If you're still here, comment your favorite kingdom.